This is the Snarketing Podcast, for marketers, by marketers, talking to marketers with just a touch of snark. Now, here are your hosts, Valerie Vespa and Matt Wurst.
Hi, and welcome to the Snarketing Podcast, episode 41, with co-hosts extraordinaire
Valerie Vespa
and Matt Wurst. You know us, you tolerate us. Occasionally, hopefully, maybe, possibly, we make you laugh or we share something that's insightful. This episode is sure to do that because we've got a sweet guest coming on. Pun always intended.
I love it. I do.
You know who it is, Valerie, and I think our listeners/viewers do as well, because it's splashed in the promos that drive people here.
Yeah.
If we had a surprise guest, that would be pretty interesting. Maybe we'll save that for season 6.
Yeah.
The surprise and delight. I don't know. Do you like the surprise and delight in marketing, or do you want to know what you're getting?
Oh, I love a surprise.
You do.
I love a little surprise and delight. I love a pun. I love a play on words. I love all those little things that make me kind of.
I'm an aficionado of alliteration.
You are?
Yes, I enjoy that. But you know what? I'm going to do some. I was just going to say that yours is a alliteration, and mine has point symmetry, which means MW. If you turn it upside down, it's still MW.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You should embroider your initials on everything. I feel like that's a very good look.
Well, I thought about that, but apparently it's the sign of the Illuminati, which is some weird underground cult that I don't necessarily want to be a part of. I do have a surprise and maybe a few delights for you in this episode that I haven't told you about. So as we bring on our guest, and we will have Al do the formal intros, but there's something fun that I'm going to do that may or may not result in me falling into a pre-diabetic coma. So we'll talk about that. If anything happens, just,
It's
my
funny.
address. Send help.
When you said you were coming with a surprise and you texted me that earlier, I just immediately was thinking, what sort of hat is he going to be wearing? Is that weird that's what
the hat is not the surprise.
I know. And then now you're wearing a hat, which is like,
it's not atypical for me. It's atypical for this podcast. But now that video is really blowing up, do you know that 90% of all content consumed online is vertical video content? That was not a plug for my other company. That was just a truth bomb. But I will say that our podcast videos actually are crushing it. So YouTube, Spotify, they've enhanced video, despite what Gail said in our last episode about how we want to keep video and audio separate.
Audio, yeah.
We do, and we have content that goes for both.
You have to think about it differently, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't, now that people are going to be looking at my face, I don't want the reflection and glare off the top of my skull to limit that. So, all right, Vinny's waiting. Let's go to Vinny.
Vinny Rinaldi is the Vice President of Media and Marketing at Hershey's. Talk about a delicious job. But there's also plenty of brains behind those good looks. Vinny got his start in media in the sports and entertainment field, grew up in big agencies, and now is one of the most influential and sought-after leaders in our space, both for dollars to spend and panels to speak on. We're honored he's joined us. Hello, Vinny, and take it away, Matt and Val.
Vinny, it is always good to see you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Snarketing Podcast. You are snarky, which we love, and you are here on the podcast, so this is a natural fit.
Well, that's great. I don't think I've actually understood or defined what snarketing is just yet, but I think we're going to get into it.
We will, and I think that by the end of this episode, you might learn something, but we will learn a whole lot more. So I am excited to get into this with you. Before we do, though, I just want to personally thank you, because we are in this post-Valentine's Day lull, but I am still living off of, my family goes all in. I probably have 75 pounds of chocolate in my house, which has inspired an idea that I want to kick off this episode with.
Oh boy.
We are going to play, for the first time ever, Buzzword Bingo, because we're in marketing, and I think part of snarketing is trying to, identify some of the things that are a little bit ridiculous
wow.
about our industry. So I made a bingo card that I'm not going to read
really
for
did.
you.
Oh,
I did,
good.
but I'm
Okay.
going to do with Hershey's Kisses.
Oh,
Okay.
perfect.
So
Perfect.
every time you say one of the buzzword things, I have to eat a kiss. So this is in your best interest to keep your business moving. You want to talk about driving business? Just keep dropping these insights with some of these buzzwords, and I will just keep eating chocolate. Are you ready?
Yeah, sure. But you're not going to tell me what the buzzwords are?
I will when you say it.
Okay.
You'll see me pop a chocolate, and
Okay.
I'll maybe hit a buzzer or something.
All right.
But the one in the middle is a free one, so I'm going to start out by eating one.
That works. So,
Like the middle of the bingo card. All right. So as I'm eating and chewing, tell me, what is your favorite candy?
oh man, that is like the number one question. I've always been probably Reese's Take 5, which I don't think a lot of people love or know about or go into, but it's literally one of the best products we make.
We
Hands
just
down.
became best friends. It is my favorite. I go hunting Halloween for it. My kids know if they see it, they
I'm
grab it for
salivating.
me.
They
Yeah, that
are
is a
honestly the
delicious-
best ones.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my
Okay,
God.
perfect. Great start. Great start.
That
Okay.
wasn't a buzzword?
No.
So let's talk about Hershey's. You started there and then left and then came back there. Tell us what drew you back in, what you are loving about your role today. Anything
Yeah.
else you want to share?
Yeah.
The boomerang story. Let's hear it.
So, one, when I first got here, it actually goes a little bit even further back. So, my wife is actually from Hershey. And when we first started dating and we came out here a bunch of times, I literally looked at her and I was like, hell would freeze over before I ever even thought about moving out here, because it was like cornfields and like the middle of nowhere. And I grew up in New Jersey and I was like, this is just not really what I would ever do. And then when we had our son, our second child, I kind of was like, wouldn't it be bad to like slow down and all of this, and a role. And this is where I'm going to go into the power of why I think LinkedIn is really a great tool for careers. Somebody I was connected to happened to like a post Charlie Chappell put out there, who was my predecessor and still here and a great friend and mentor of mine over at Hershey. And it randomly popped up and I was like, hey, Chris, could you introduce me to Charlie? There was a role, it was like addressable media. That was like perfect fit. Literally within 3 weeks, I was signing papers and coming to Hershey. So it happened really fast. It was, I was leaving, Dentsu at the time where I was managing the Merkle acquisition and integration. But it was an awesome opportunity for an iconic brand. And, I spent 2.5 years here. And during that journey, my wife wasn't working. She then went back to work, which is what ended up bringing us back to the New York area. It wasn't that I wanted to necessarily leave the company. It was that family dynamics changed and we ended up going back to the New York, New Jersey area, which lo and behold was 6 weeks before the pandemic. So the world changed right in front of us fast. Hershey's wasn't at the time a remote company. A lot of people do live in this town, live in the area, spend a lot of time in the office. Quite honestly, it's probably the easiest and best way to get things done. So we left, lived in the New York area. I had a great job. I was chief investment officer at Wavemaker, working with, some incredible folks, learning some incredible brands across a variety of portfolios. And I always kept in touch with a lot of folks here. So as the next 1.5 years wore on through COVID, I kept in touch and there was an opportunity to potentially come back, and we started that conversation. And here we are 3.5 years later now, sitting in the role that probably I've always, dreamed of being in, running across just iconic brands. But really, you really hit the question of like, why is it so great to work here? And for me, it's the legacy and the iconic brands that we represent, but really it's the founder we represent. Like if more people understood the ethos of who Milton Hershey was and what he built and why he built it and what he did for people, it has nothing to do with chocolate. Like at the end of the day, that was like, of course, the company that created what's here, but he built an entire town through what he wanted to do. And surrounding this entire town is a really incredible school system. which is called the Milton Hershey School. And him and Kitty, his wife, could not have children. So they left their entire trust and fortune to the school. So every year, all of our revenue, everything is to really help fund and put, right now there's over 2,200 underprivileged children that go to school every day. And we think about that, and like, that's where you think about the brand you work for, and sure, peanut butter and chocolate bars for s'mores, like, it's great, but there is a greater good. And it was always the founder's ethos to create and scale chocolate to Americans, to really reproduce what he wanted, was to give everybody a chance. So that's what brought me back. That's what really kind of stuck with me a lot, of like, why is it such a great place to work?
Well, it really is the epitome of this idea of like professional output and outcomes, right?
Yep.
Like, what you guys put out is obviously an incredible product, but the outcomes drive even more impactful results. And that's a pretty awesome thing. I mean, as we're talking about your career arc, which is incredible, and started in media planning and buying and data and all the fun things in terms of tech, and now leading media for this iconic brand. Like me, your career actually started in sports and media.
Right.
So was there like an initial vision for your career to go down that path? Did you want to be the next like Jerry Maguire, or what was your, or Stuart Scott, or what was your, like, a pivotal moment that kind of shaped that journey for you?
You're one of the first people who didn't reference Tom Rinaldi. No, I'm not related.
Tom from ESPN. Come on.
No, I'm not related, but I always get that often. I played
Francesco Rinaldi, the tomato sauce. How about that guy?
Unfortunately, Francesca. No,
it was Francesca. I thought it was Francesco Rinaldi.
It's not also my sauce. We owned a school bus company in New Jersey, so very different. It wasn't a sanitation business, so we'll leave that one out there. But to that point, like, I played hockey my whole life. I love sports. I played really anything I could. My dream was like, I want to work in sports. This is, what I love to do. And if I can bring that to my career, why not? When I started my career and got a chance to work at ESPN, it was like, oh my God, the holy grail. And this is, early 2010s. And for me, I'm like, this is it. I'm set. I'm good. And when you get inside, you realize you're actually not working in sports. You're just working in digital advertising on a
still a job, right? Yeah.
And it's not really what I would, show as like working in sports. I think what I really now, as I've learned through the industry and, been a big role in watching sports and, growing up with it, like, my ideal life would actually be one of two routes. One, to do the same job I do, but run it all for the National Hockey League. Who Heidi Browning's probably one of.
I was going to say, Heidi, are you watching? Heidi, are you listening? There you go.
Amazing jobs done from a professional sports league, in my opinion. Or just really coaching hockey for either a college or high school team. But again, that's what I love in sports. But how do I bring the best of what I love in my career and sports to life? I'm trying to figure that out still.
Wait, how do you feel about the whole like Canada, America? Like, I didn't like
the Four Nations Cup. Are you talking about?
What an amazing marketing job they did, right?
So
I know
you've taken a moment, which I think everyone's feeling a little bit right now, is like this Americana moment, which we didn't know was coming. This tournament was already scheduled, but my God, did they run with it and, put hockey on the map. You had almost 10 million people in the US alone watching it, combined 16 million between North America. And the highest rated game is probably 2 million households. So think of what you built, and not only that, you saw one of the most exciting sports events in a while. So, I hope it's a big jumping off point. I hope it's a momentum builder for hockey, because I do think, yes, I'm biased. I do think it's one of the most fascinating and great sports there is.
So getting back on to media and marketing, obviously you've been in the business for quite some time. What do you think is one of the worst things about the evolution of media and marketing? And what do you think is something that's actually benefited you over time?
I think one of the worst things is jargon, no doubt about it. Like, if you think about it, and I've been on the other side. So like having spent time at both agencies and ad tech platforms and stuff, you think about your myopic viewpoint of like, what are you trying to deliver within your system or your capability, which isn't wrong, by the way. But when you then go to a brand and you really have to think about what do they care about? How do they actually win over, the household penetration or market share of their product? They're not talking about SSPs, DSPs, which algorithm is right. Like they're talking about what do I need to do, which means really foundational principles of marketing, consistent brand messaging, reach and frequency. What does that mean? And I think as an industry, we've lost sight of almost all of that. I said something, but it was not because I wanted to say those jargons. But he's eating.
Not on the Buzzword Bingo card.
He's
You were
eating.
avoiding them. It's amazing. I'm looking at the card.
Okay. I thought I heard you crunching a Kisses foil wrapper.
No, keep them coming though.
So I think, for me, what we've ruined is the simplicity of what marketing really is. And that's just, I don't think enough people are understanding it. Because again, principles of truly growing a brand need to come back to life, and reach and frequency sit at the core of all of that.
As the two of us spent a lot of time at agencies, we actually overlapped and may or may not have even met at the time in Dentsu. But the agencies that we worked at were actually, in my opinion, some of the more innovative in terms of bringing media and creative together, which doesn't always happen. You don't always get that luxury. Sometimes you may win a creative business or you may win the media business, but a lot of that overlap did happen. I am curious, as you're in this role where creative is something you can impact, but the media is certainly something that you own and drive. Are there lessons or takeaways that you've pulled from in terms of balancing creativity with that more data-centric science?
Yeah, so I've got a counterpart here who runs our brand strategy and creative, and we work hand in hand really on everything. Because at the end of the day, you can't do media without creative, and you can't build creative without understanding the mediums you have to place it on. And the fact that we've lost that art, to me as an industry, is wild. To say brand versus performance or brand formance or whatever we're all trying to say is crazy, because all media should perform. All marketing does something. It's the job of what you're putting out there. So whatever the KPI is, it's got to have a performance layer to it. Now, at the end of the day, all those things wrap together to do one thing: drive sales and drive share. Like the simplest way of thinking about this is, our brands have some sort of market share or household penetration on a given basis, some way higher than others. But whatever it is, it correlates back to how many households are in America. If you want to grow 1% next year, when you really think about that, it's only converting 1.3 million households. Like that's it. And if that's a fact, let's just say you have a 20% conversion rate. You really only need to go reach another 6 million homes to get that 1% growth. And I think we lose sight of these things because we want to see these big numbers in all these different areas. But again, principles of marketing: grow market share, controlled by reach and frequency. So it's a lot of what I'm trying to do, at least internally plus externally, is talk, about the simple ways of like really thinking about what our brands think about. And almost every brand in the world thinks this way. No matter what product it is, no matter what category it is, you've got some sort of penetration number and you're trying to grow it. Like it is that simple. But no matter how good of a negotiated rate you get or placement you buy, it doesn't matter if you don't say the right thing on the other end. So that's where, when you blend the two, that's the most important part of this.
Well, when we were talking earlier before we hit record about the sort of short-termism that's taken hold, not just in CPG or in your specific area, but
it's everywhere,
right?
Yep.
Like what was the last quarter? And it's different with publicly traded versus startups versus emerging versus challenger. I get all that, but there's a constant pressure to perform, which may or may not make risk-taking or innovation budgets, less popular and less something that marketing leaders will lean into.
Yep.
Is that something that weighs heavily on you, or do you look more forward than backwards?
It's probably a mix of both. So you're right. Everything is about sales overnight, but I keep pushing the brand over time story. you've got to have both. You can't just do one or the other. You've got to combine those two. And when I say sales overnight, we jokingly say, like, you know, on February 9th, I think was the Monday after the Super Bowl, everyone's like, did it work? It's like, I don't know. It only happened 12 hours ago, but maybe. But really within 24 hours, we actually do pull week over week sales at a bunch of our major retailers. And you do actually see from Sunday to the Monday sales numbers, a pretty decent pop in sales. So like there is a mantra of like you reminded people quickly to go try something and or to go buy something new or again. And that's great in a very small window, but that's not 52 weeks of the year, 365 days a year. So how do you sustain that over time is really important, because if you show up once, especially in an impulsive category like chocolate or candy,
Right.
and they buy you to try it, that's amazing. What's their repeat over the year? Do they come back and do it again? Did you make a good enough product for them to keep wanting more? And that's where you combine the two. So yes, sales overnight works, but did the brand sustain over time is probably the most important KPI, so that you're not wasting all this time on building new products, innovation, all this stuff. And then, wow, what a big splash for a week, and then it's gone.
I wonder, like, what are your thoughts on how, like, the conversion of media technology and marketing, like, weigh on how you make decisions on a day to day?
Not shocking, but like most bigger brands, we live and die by our media mix model. No doubt about it. What's accelerated over the last few years, in my opinion, is the ability to clean data faster, ingest data quicker, and model the output in a much richer way. Excuse me, is I guess either clean data or modeling. I'm not sure which one.
We'll do a scorecard at the end, but I'm chomping on a chocolate. Good work. Keep going. I didn't mean to distract you. The flow, keep the flow coming.
But as you think about, you know, I think somebody said it really, I think you actually might have said it before we jumped on, and I've heard it too often in the last week. So this might be on your scorecard too, but we're in the quote unquote outcomes era, which when you don't own your end game as a brand like us, we can't fully control the outcome, because a lot of our partners do. Like, you know, a lot of our customers, we call them not consumers. Customers are Walmart, Target, Kroger, et cetera. They control our end game. So to really tie those two things together is a challenge. So our media mix model has always been grounded in helping us deliver what's marketing doing, what's base velocity, what's trade, what's distribution. These are all the factors that go into a total revenue growing business. And because of that, technology's gotten so much better. We're getting quicker at being able to read these things, but it still isn't perfect. And it's something that we continually work on a daily basis. But the quicker we can read true revenue due to, which is the effectiveness side of the equation, as well as return on investment, the faster we'll be able to optimize our mix to be a lot smarter and more capable. ROI.
Yep.
As soon as I said it, you grabbed the tinfoil.
You are driving business as we speak right now. You know, the idea of the impulse purchase, I think, is something I've been fascinated with as a marketer for a long time. You know, growing up and going to the supermarket with my parents, and you know, asking for something at the checkout was like the surprise and delight moment for me. But it's gotten harder.
It's why I don't take my kids shopping anymore, because I spend more when they come with me than I would have if I just went.
But I think the flip side to that is when I do take my kids out in real life, they're either on their phone or on a device and they're not looking up. And this was a challenge going back even 10 years ago when I was working with like gum brands. They were seeing their entire business model needed to shift because they no longer could rely on that type of purchase anymore. Is this one of many factors that are still challenges for brands in your sweet spot to think about?
Yeah, like, are people picking up bags of candy versus individual ones?
So it's a great question. So we split our business into two different ways. IC and take home. IC is instant consumables. So basically anything you'd grab as a single bar, checkout lines, etc. Take home is in the middle of the store, down the aisles, bigger pack types, different occasions. That's a take home product. So when you look at those two things, you have to start understanding consumer challenges. So to your point, the phone could be a reason they're not grabbing on the shelf, but the reality is it's more than just a phone being stared at. It's the checkout line is changing. You've got self-checkouts where the space is even smaller and less real estate for you to insert yourself. Yeah. There's, when you think about certain stores, they kind of bring you down the cattle herd line to go through to get to the self-checkout. And what they're doing there is not necessarily individual wrappings. There's different types of packs there. And it's also not just what was typically at a checkout line. It could be, hell, there's rotisserie chicken at the cattle lines now. So a lot of the format in the store is changing. And for us, not only is the format of the store changing, you are certainly, and I think everybody can admit this, you're seeing a change in consumer behavior. There is a lot more people shopping online. There's a lot more people using an Instacart, a DoorDash, etc., where, where they are getting groceries delivered. So if you're an unplanned purchase, which we are usually, that's a really big challenge. So when you think of all these headwinds, okay, how do you insert yourself impulsively into a digital checkout ecosystem when somebody's planned their meals, planned their grocery, did it on their app, and is like, I'm going to pick this up on my way home, so I don't even have to go in the store anymore? That's a big challenge for us. When people do it to be delivered to their house or shipped to home. Ship to home is growing immensely. I think Amazon, clearly. But when you think about our product, if you ship it, it melts. And if you add cold pack to it on bigger pack types, it still lose all of our margin. So we are facing a tremendous amount of different challenges. And, we're working very much hand in hand with the retailers on, what is, when somebody comes to sit in that pickup line or parking spot, is there a moment we can insert ourselves there while they're waiting for their grocery bags to come out and be put in their car? Can we ask like that kind of ad at the end, or, DoorDash does this well when you already submitted something, like, can they add something along the way? But like, these are serious headwinds for us. So we're having a lot more conversations internally on, what are our occasions that we need to go in? Do we need pack types to fit those occasions? Is it multi-packs? Is it, bundles? And, there's a lot of just different challenges we face. But it's not just us that are facing them. This is every food category, across the board, not just in chocolate and sweets.
Is there an infusion of marketing innovation or, I don't know, like operational innovation that you are using that's helping kind of test and learn? Or
a lot of testing and learning. We've got a great agile process set up internally on our team where, we've got daily scrums and we, sit with the agencies and we go through all these different learnings. And, for us, you've got to continually learn. I think when you think about how we're setting up the infrastructure for testing, it goes back to principles. And we've really created a good principle from an investment strategy perspective where you don't forget about all the things that make you work. So, we built a 70-20-10 mantra. 70% of your spend should really hone in on true reach driving tactics that deliver your business. That next 20 should really focus and hone in on your growth audiences. How do you go find them? What does that mean? It doesn't mean targeting. It means who are you going to grow with? And what do you need to do? Do you show up differently from a contextual perspective? Do you have a different targeting strategy? Do you create a different communications plan off of those audiences? And then that last bit, that 10, and I jokingly always say this, and this is no knock whatsoever on the sphere, but I'm always like, go buy the sphere. Something that won't really hurt your business, but you've got to go try something. There's so many things out there now that are new. How do you win there? We've got to learn, so go do it. And that's what we're trying to like really lean into across our portfolio, is making sure we build that muscle of constantly trying new things, not using the media mix model as a planning tool, but as a measurement tool, and just allow ourselves to get out of our comfort zone a bit as a big brand and go see what's out there.
So where in again, like I've not worked at a very big brand in a very long time, more than 15 years. But for that type of 10% to happen, I'm fascinated. Like, let me in to the closed doors and the meetings here that happen. Is it one person who champions it? Is it like you have to get a room with 37 department leads to be like, let's try this one thing for a $10,000 innovation budget, right? Like, that seems inefficient.
It's a mix of both. It all depends on what we're trying to do. Like if you go after something really crazy and new, and like you have to also make sure creative is involved and PR is involved, and you do have to bring a lot of cross-functional teams together to do these things. We just did what I think was a really well done Super Bowl execution that wasn't just about our spot. And now I'm biased, obviously, but like we've never done this before. Just for context, we've never done in real life activations like that. We've never tied the whole thing together. But to me, on the outside looking in, and everyone in New Orleans was talking about like seeing Reese's everywhere, like that was really cool. Now we're a marketing community, so it popped for us, but it took many teams being on the same page and working together for months to get all this to life. And that includes multiple agencies, multiple internal cross-functional partners. Like that to me is what good could look like, even though in the moment we were like scrambling every day to get this done and that done. And, but I think that's where, when you think about innovation, you can't do it alone. It'll never work. It just, you have to get some champions across the board. You've got to bring people down a journey through, really what I've been saying a lot is like modernizing our advertising ecosystem. We've all been saying it in the building. And I think that's what's important, is like getting people bought in, going down this journey, but also don't take big swings too far. Test your way in. Sometimes we tend to say it's an either or, but it's not. It's a compounding end. Like, don't forget about what really does work, but also say, okay, and we're going to do this because this is going to compound growth for us. And I think that's a better way, the whole Boolean logic of like, it's either you're going to do this or you're going to do this, and that's it. And I think that's crazy right now because there's too much out there to go try and win with.
And audiences are so fragmented anyway, right? So it's about small wins that may compound, as you said, and leveraging whatever, I'm making air quotes in jargon here, but like the data-driven decision-making that happens to ensure that you're actually leveraging the data in a meaningful way and not just collecting it for the sake of collecting it, right?
I mean, sometimes your gut is your best data. Like if you really try and overanalyze every single
But I got a lot of data though, so that's good. I got a big gut, a lot of data.
Because you're gonna overanalyze yourself out of telling yourself not to do it. And that whole example in the Super Bowl was like, are we really questioning whether we should do a partnership with the Kelseys or Barstool? Like it works for Reese's. It's our consumer. Like it's having fun as a brand with your consumer base. And we shouldn't question it because we didn't have an ROI yet. And we didn't, by the way. We actually all leaned in really well together. But like at first everyone was like, should we? And instead of like, the gut makes sense, let's go do it, hold hands, build a plan that actually says, here's how we're going to measure impact. And let's just go do it. And it wasn't a massive investment to be scared of. So that, again, but I couldn't have done that alone. Like you have to make sure you're working in tandem with every part, the brand leads, the creative leads, PR leads, etc.
Yeah, it takes a village, and in your case, an entire town of Hershey to make it happen.
Chocolate bubble.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of brands talk about the consumer participation in co-creation now with the advancements of social platforms and even owned and operated channels facilitating a lot of that. What you and I talked about at a conference where you called me out from the stage, right? The community media solution. But building communities and what that actually means for a brand like Hershey's is something I'm curious about how you guys think about. Like, there is such passion for it. How do you turn that loyalty, that advocacy into a growth engine?
Yeah, it's almost like you're weirdly sitting in my office in like the last 2 weeks of conversations, because this has been a hot topic, and it's not just the last 2 weeks. This has been about a 6+ month journey that we've been trying to figure this out. Because you're right, it's not just influencers, it's not just creators. We signed on to the New Heights podcast year-long deal. And the first question I got was like, "Oh, you're doing a podcast? That's cool." And I'm like, "It's not just a podcast." Like, if you look,
we feel the same way, by the way. It's not just, this is not just a podcast either. So thank you for leaning into the medium.
The first episode that our deal launched with, just so happened they were interviewing LeBron James. And they then shared clips of that episode, Bleacher Report, Sports Center, ESPN, all over the place. And behind it all was a Reese's logo. Now, I can't, we're like, okay, how do you measure that? What does that mean? That's everywhere now. We didn't even know it was going to happen. Anything can go at any moment. And I think what we love about this is there's smaller brands where you build really mini communities out and you focus on these small areas to go after. And then there's bigger brands where you basically are sharing influence. You both have brand equity in different ways. How do you leverage one another? Because Reese's has plenty of brand equity. But if you have a Jason and Travis Kelce who literally before we did this deal talked about Reese's all the time because they love it. And then you had a bunch of guys at Barstool doing the same thing. It's it was so natural and authentic to what they already were doing, but we're borrowing their equity to build off of and ride together. It isn't one or the other. It's not, well, it's our brand and not yours. When you do it together, you really see the power of both. And then, we take some of our smaller portfolio to your point of communities. And we actually, this is where, before we got Reese's into the Barstool ecosystem the past few months, we had One Bars, which is our part of our protein business. So what we kind of had some insights of is who eats a lot of protein bars? People on the go, golfers popped. So we said, all right, well, you don't have this massive budget as a brand. Why are we buying, just 6-second social and video ads? If people don't really know who you are you making an impact? Why don't we find one big insight and go after it? And when we started to see, again, you're seeing more people on the golf course eat protein bars along their 4-hour round rather than hot dogs, just because they're playing and moving. Then their goal is to get to the clubhouse at the end where you then go have a big meal and have beers and just hang out with the guys. Okay, great. How do we insert ourselves? So this is where actually Barstool for us was the first opportunity in, and we partnered with the Foreplay Pod, which is the golf community within Barstool Sports. And what we did there was fully integrate the product. And oh, by the way, it's called One Bars, so hole in one was just natural. And you'd have this opportunity to win with this community. And it came off the authenticity of how they integrated into, Trent's Breaking 90 or, just the weekly show that they release. But the show that they release isn't just the podcast. They do a weekly video on YouTube where they play golf with somebody. And so you've got other hockey players, golfers, and other people eating the One Bars on the show with them. So when you think about borrowing and partnering on these communities, you just ingrain the authenticity of your brand into them, which I think is the most important part of this, because it feels supernatural and not like an ad. And that's what we saw the power become is it isn't one or the other. Or what does influencer mean or creator mean? It's how do we find the communities that matter? And then how do you really authentically show up in those communities so it doesn't feel like an advertisement?
Yeah, it has to be genuine. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So your pitch is done.
I know,
You don't have to pitch me.
So get out your Hershey's Kiss, Matt, because AI,
Oh,
Vinny.
You said it, not me.
I gotta put 5 in it for that one. I gotta eat 5 at once.
Is it helping you today? Is it?
It is. And I don't want to go I'm not going to give away the whole house in a way, but
Yeah.
we've certainly leaned in a variety of just different areas, just from a buying perspective, getting smarter at how you're buying, your supply strategy, creating custom algorithms, which I've openly spoken about and have case studies on with Chalice. We have definitely seen the power of using AI. There is just hard stop. I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but we've leaned in to keep testing and learning and what works and what doesn't. And it really does have an impact in some areas. The biggest
I always
area I think
ask
we're
from like a
missing
personal
is
standpoint
planning.
too.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Personally, oh yeah. I use it. It's great. It's certainly like there's so many ways to save time by using it. You know, if you can, I'll give you a perfect example, but I won't say who shared it, but it was like 130 slide deck. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with this? And it was like a performance review over the year. And I'm like, this is a lot. So what I did was I actually used Notebook LLM, which is a Google thing. And I only learned about it because the product leader was on stage at the ANA, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I should try it. So I took this deck, I put it in there, and then it just digested the whole 130 slides. And then I started asking questions, and it answered everything, like how many units moved this year in store versus digital. And it would tell me what SKUs popped versus the others. It was all in the
by the way, and you can turn it into like an audio. It's almost like a 10-minute. You can listen to it while you're driving to work. Correct. It's like a podcast from your company about your performance.
Right. That's right. So there are ways, like if you start to think about like, how do I become a little bit more efficient? Because I think we've also gone this route in this world of like, if I look at my calendar, even today, I'm booked through 4:00 on a Friday, which is wild. I don't know, like half the time you don't get work done because you're just in meetings. So coming out of those, how do you make your time that you do have to get some things done more efficient so you're not up all night or up early in the morning, is why I'm leaning in and trying to figure out what the best ways to use it is.
And I think that's what's fun. So speaking of fun, we are going to wrap up now with our rapid fire lightning round questions that require no thought, preparation, just whatever you feel, say. And if you want us to edit it after the fact, we can. We still have a few left remaining on the bingo card, so let's hope.
I'm a very limited jargon speaker.
Okay, good.
For a very good reason.
Then you're keeping me somewhat
svelte.
That's svelte. I mean, like there's a serving sample, right? So I'm basically at my serving size right now, and you don't ever want to exceed that, especially in marketing. I can only show 3 Oreo cookies in an ad.
I got to make you to come back. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. First question, just in terms of the Hershey ecosystem of products, we've already talked about several of them, but what's one that probably deserves a little bit of love that you want to plug here that may be underrated?
Oh man, Dots Pretzels. We own Dots Pretzels, and I don't think many people know it. We also own Skinny Pop and Pirate's Booty, but Dots Pretzels are phenomenal. And I'm not just saying that because we own them. I mean, when people actually have them, they're like, holy, where has this been my whole life? And we're launching new flavors, new ways in. It's fun. It's so great. Try the cinnamon ones. It's literally Cinnamon Toast Crunch pretzels.
I do love cinnamon pretzels. So you had me at pretzel. But we are a Skinny Pop family, and I know you guys just had a big activation in and around the Oscars, which everyone has seen already because everybody loves Jen. So
it's our Super Bowl for Skinny Pop.
There you go. So what's most responsible of all the options I'm about to give you for keeping you up at night? Media fragmentation, signal loss, the death of cookies, or just too much sugar in general before bed?
Media fragmentation, hands down.
Okay.
Like just hands down. Cookie loss, signal loss, I could care less. We have to reach everybody with a mouth and stomach. So those things don't affect me as much as you'd think. But the fragmentation of channel mixes and partner mixes is certainly one of the hardest things to do in our job right now.
Okay. Well, to accelerate the Buzzword Bingo game, what is one outdated marketing strategy or buzzword that you wish brands would just retire already?
Linear TV.
I don't have that one. I had 3 others. Damn it. Okay.
Linear TV. And it's, I say that jokingly because we still buy it. But when you sit down at night, and I use this in my building nonstop all day long, anywhere really, do you want to watch linear or streaming tonight? No. You sit down and you say, I want to watch the news. I want to watch this game that's on, or I want to watch whatever show I want. So that's the difference. You've got live versus streaming. So if you're going to watch a cultural moment like the Oscars, which you should, and or the Super Bowl or indoor sports games, or you want to watch the next episode of whatever show you're watching right now, it doesn't matter. You have that choice. And when we as media buyers think about it, we're like, well, we're doing too much linear. It's like, nobody even knows what that is anymore.
Okay, so maybe the same answer or maybe not, but what's like a marketing hill that you will die on no matter what anyone else or everyone else is saying?
Not all impressions are created equal.
Quality over quantity?
Just because you can get an impression doesn't mean it's right. And I think everyone wants to see a number versus year ago continue to grow. And that's not reality anymore because there's too much content proliferation out there. There's too much bifurcation. You've got to be buying in all these areas to win consumer sentiment over. And some are more expensive than others. And that is a cost barrier that then makes your impressions go down potentially versus up. But it doesn't mean it's wrong. Effective reach versus ineffective spill isn't necessarily where we should be thinking. Effective is the most important metric we should go after. So yes, quality over quantity.
It's unfortunately not how I've lived my life per se, but it's still good final words of wisdom for any marketer trying to navigate this chaos. And that, Vinny, is what snarketing is all about, right?
I love it.
So before we let you go, are there any other upcoming campaigns? I know Halloween isn't for a while. Valentine's Day just happened. Back to school is a fun time. Like, you have these big tentpole moments. The Oscars just happened. But what are you thinking about maybe to avoid the hammock effect between these tentpoles?
Well, we've got March Madness coming up where we're an official sponsor. Have always been with Reese's, so that'll be a good one. There's
Gonna get you in my pool. Perfect.
There's a couple launches that I'm not going and we're unable to speak about that will be coming that I think will really make a pop. Not just from a marketing campaign perspective, but from a product perspective. So yeah, we've got an exciting future ahead right now with a great plan to go launch these things.
Well, the future is bright, and I am, and Valerie, I'm sure as well. We are grateful that you've chosen and opted to spend some time with us in this busy day and busy time for you. Before we go, I will grade the scorecard now, and I will tell you that, not counting the free kiss that I ate at the beginning, there were 8 other remaining buzzwords. You hit 4 of them and left 4 on the table, which is a really good number. 500 is not bad either way, right? We hit
take it.
AI, ROI, data modeling, and penetration. We got that. We did not include, unless I missed it, because I was really listening. I wasn't like watching the scorecard, but attribution, omni-channel, engagement, and commerce and retail media. We didn't say that.
No.
All right.
So now I have some leftover kisses for lunch.
I would actually observe that I guess I said AI in the answer, but really Valerie brought AI to the table.
She didn't know that I was doing this, so it was a game for all of us.
I get it. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. This is awesome.
Everybody won this game with you, Vinny, so thank you.
Thank you.
If there are a few leftover Hershey's Kisses, save a few for me. But what an even bigger treat that conversation was. Thank you for joining us on the Snarketing Podcast. Until next time.